Hello, everyone, and welcome to the First Class Lacrosse podcast. My name is Matt Dunn, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Deemer Class. We are thrilled to sit down with one of the winningest coaches in our sport, University of Maryland head coach, Cathy Reese. Coach Reese is entering her 20th season as Maryland's head coach. She's a Terp through and through, a four-time national champion as a player, won 3 championships as an assistant, and now the all-time winningest coach in Maryland women's lacrosse history. After 3 seasons as the head coach at Denver, she returned to College Park in 2007. Since then, she's led the Terps to 5 national championships, 12 Final Fours, and 22 conference championships in 19 seasons. She ranked 6th all-time in NCAA wins and was the fastest coach to reach 200, 250, and 300 wins in the sport. Beyond the numbers, Coach Reese is known for the culture she's built, her connection with players, and her ability to lead with both excellence and joy. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. And that was quite a nice introduction. Thank you. Some of those I didn't even know.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you on. We appreciate your time. We were catching up a little bit on fall ball before, but now that we're in fall ball, we talked to a few different people, former players, that you've coached, and kind of a fun opener here. The idea of fun keeps coming up when kind of talking about and learning about your program. The Terp Olympics, fun games. We heard you're a great dancer in the locker room. Somehow always seem to keep things light amidst a very competitive environment. What's fun stuff have you guys been up to this fall so far?
Dove in pretty quickly, that's for sure, once we get through September 1st recruiting and get our team back on campus. And Maryland didn't start till after Labor Day, so we were a little later. I guess the big thing on the table right now, we got a pickleball tournament coming up on Thursday. So, a couple of my staff coaches are big pickleball players. I am not. I would love to be. I tried. I actually thought I was pretty good when I played against my kids, and then I played next to a group of older people, and they were just crushing it, and that put me right in my place, and I was like, well, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. So our team will get to do that on Thursday, and that'll be a fun tournament to kind of get us going this fall, as we're almost at the halfway point of fall ball.
And Cathy, as we kind of get into this here, we're gonna loop back to current state of affairs. But as Deemer and I were talking, we wanted to go back to the origins a little bit here. And we said in the intro, but you're a Terp through and through. You spent nearly your entire career at Maryland as a player, an assistant, and now a head coach. Curious what makes Maryland such a special place to you?
Yeah, it's been a long time. And when you said I'm entering year 20, that really put it out there. But, when I started here in the fall of 94, so spring of 95 was our first season, had the chance to play for Cindy Timshaw, who you guys have talked to before as well. And, I didn't make my decision on where I was going to college till spring of my senior year. So really late, compared to what a lot of, schools are doing and when kids are committing these days. And came into College Park and just loved it. I loved everything and loved the lacrosse aspect. Cindy had just brought Gary on board and we had great other assistants at that point. And the lacrosse was fun. We all enjoyed playing. Loved being teammates, loved competing, just loved the sport. And so then you look at College Park and made a lot of great friends and built a lot of really good relationships. And over the course of 4 years, we won a lot. That's for sure. I think we lost 4 games total in 4 years, but also just had a really great experience. The athletic department is just behind all of its athletes, is super supportive of women's sports here too, and that was a big deal. Met my husband freshman year, I met him freshman year. We got married like 12 years later, or 8 years later. But our friendships and relationships that we all built with our team and other athletes on campus were really special, and it continues to be to this day as well.
In talking to different people like Melissa Diopold and Taylor Cummings, Caitlin McFadden, like everyone's really touched on this idea kind of about the relationships and how you're really able to care for players as people first, and then players. Like, is that something that you felt like you really got under your time at Cindy and some of the other coaches?
One of the things that I have just kind of always operated is under that line that the kids don't care how much they want to know how much you care. And I think, when we come in as coaches, my staff is wonderful, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about them in a little bit too, but we all do different things really well. But that having those relationships with our athletes to know that, what, when you come to college, you're going to have some highs, you're going to have some lows, you're going to have some good days, you're going to have some bad days, but we're in this together and we're here to support you and have your back every step of the way. And building those relationships and that trust, I think is really important.
Alluding back to your time at Maryland, did you know as a player at Maryland under Cindy that you wanted to become a coach upon graduation, or how did that process unfold for you?
Yeah, no idea. I'd never really even thought that coaching was a career. When I was in college, just didn't even think of it, right? And I'd worked all of Cindy's camps. She ran a lot of overnight camps, throughout the summers, and I worked a lot of them, and was just really passionate about teaching and loved being able to just engage and communicate with younger players and teach a game that I really enjoyed playing, and really liked that part. But when I was ready to graduate, we had the thing at Maryland. It was like all your Terp resumes got sent out and stuff like that. And, I think I interviewed to sell life insurance. I didn't even know what life insurance was, so you're starting these interviews of things that are getting sent out to people reaching out to you because you're an athlete, you're at Maryland or whatever. But it still had never even really thought about college coaching. And then a position opened at Maryland and I was able to start working with Cindy and Gary. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. I kind of fell right into it, and am really grateful for that opportunity and that experience. And that was kind of what started it all, which I don't know, was pretty cool. And here we are a lot of years later and still doing it and still loving it.
What was that transition like, going from like you finish your senior year, you guys are coming off a big high, and then now you're getting used to professional life, like in an office, watching film, I'm sure. And now you're learning this art of coaching. What were those couple of years like, being an assistant, transitioning from being a player?
Yeah, it was tough at first because I graduated. I stayed 4.5 years in college because I just couldn't get enough of College Park. So stayed and took 2 classes in the fall of my senior year. So once that was done and I was able to join Maryland in the spring, I still had a lot of my good friends were still in school. And so it was tough to really find that balance between trying to start off your career and be professional in this position, but also know that these are the people that I would hang out with all the time outside of practice and class and stuff. So that was a little bit of a transition. I also started teaching. I taught 3 classes of middle school PE in the mornings, and then I would come down to Maryland in the afternoons to make it work because I wasn't paid very much. Wasn't a full-time employee at the start, and this is where women's lacrosse was back in 1998, 99. But it was the starting point that obviously, I was able to get a full-time assistant position. The following year, I think Sarah Forbes had left to go back to Australia. And so then it was me, Cindy, and Gary for a while. And then when Gary ended up leaving, Jen Adams was able to join the crew. And so it was a lot of fun to, again, coach at a place that you love, that you know so much about, but find a way to kind of lead your friends, coaching your friends, but also try to continue to compete for national championships as we move forward.
Cathy, I know we mentioned it in the intro, but it's impressive on paper, but I'm trying to imagine the scenario of you getting to Maryland and winning 4 national championships as a player, which winning 1 is so hard. Winning 4 in a row is crazy. And then I believe your next 3 years as an assistant, that was part of Coach Tim Chaw's 7 in a row run. You win 3 as an assistant coach. So for 7 years of your life, every spring, all you know is winning a national championship. How do you remember that time? Was that something you could appreciate at the moment, of you could understand like the culture you guys had, or did it just feel like something that you got so used to because Maryland just won at that point?
I played for Mount Hebron High School in high school, and the great PJ Kesmodal, who did so much throughout his career. And we maybe won 3 state championships in high school. I think I lost maybe 3 games in high school as well. So when I went to college, we just expected this is what was supposed to do. We were supposed to win, and that was kind of how it was. And we went undefeated in 1995 and won the national championship. And then another thing to note too is, because I know you guys talk a lot about your stuff, about the growth of our sport, and we had 6 teams in the, we had a bye into the Final Four my freshman year of college. So 6 teams made the NCAA tournament, which was, we were ranked number 1 in the nation. Well, you wouldn't know because there's no internet, but you could find that out on the newspapers when they sent them out. But, 6 teams made the NCAA tournament. We had a bye into the Final Four. And then, 1996, we went undefeated all season and won it all. 97, we lost to Loyola towards the end of the season and went on and won the national championship. And then 98 was my senior year. And that was the toughest year and probably the most rewarding, right? Like, here you are, this is your team now. You're a senior, you're a leader, you're a captain of this team. And we come out opening weekend and we played Duke and Carolina on a Friday and a Sunday, and we lost to both teams. And so we were 0-2 to start my senior year. And I thought, of course, the world's ending. So it's funny if you hear Jen Adams talk about this. She had just come over from Australia in January, and she comes out, and this is her first weekend as a Terp playing. She go 0-2. Well, I'm a mess. I can't get myself together. I'm probably crying. I don't know. The world's ending, right? I've lost now 5 games in 8 years. And this is, I don't know how to handle this. And Jen's like, what is wrong with you people over here? Because the Australian vibe is just a little bit different. But we went on that season. We lost in the ACC tournament to Carolina and went on and played Carolina in the Final Four and won, and then beat Virginia in the national championship and won. And so that was a really special year in 1998 to kind of come forth with that. Well, then kind of starts the, next year, the 99, 2000, 2001, you look at Jen Adams' era, like where she's dominating in all of those years. So that was so cool to have been her teammate and then have a front row seat to watch her do all of the great things that she did for women's lacrosse. And yeah, she credit everything to her teammates. She had awesome players around her, like, Quinn Carney and Tori Wellington and Allison Comito. And these people were just so fun to coach, but just kept doing their thing at Maryland. And, we just kept winning, and it was awesome. And so I think at that point as a player, you didn't know any different. You didn't expect any different. I expected to win, and that was where we were. We lost my last 2 years as an assistant at Maryland in the final. Well, one year was in the Final Four. And then I went out to Denver, and I had my first game out at Denver. And the game ended, and I just remember sitting on the bench like, what just happened? And I think I had tears coming down my face, and my administrator at the time is like, okay, like this is going to take some time, like you're going to get there, and this is going to take some time. So I don't think I really appreciated it when I was in it. Now as a coach, it's hard to win. It's really hard to win. And we've got so many great teams in our sport, and with a tournament bracket of, what is it now, 29, we're looking to keep pushing this up. The growth has been tremendous, but the talent the growth in the talent is amazing. And you realize how hard that really was to do, and what a cool thing that I was able to say I was a part of. And I'll always be grateful for that experience, for sure.
I do want to go back on that a little bit, because I think that idea of, handling some of that adversity for the first time when you're like so used to winning from high school to college, and then you deal with just some of those losses or that loss as a coach. Like, what did you learn about yourself through that? Because obviously, like, you can remember those feelings because the amount of times you've lost is pretty minimal, and then how did you, move forward through that?
I think the biggest thing I would say in 98, my senior year, that I learned was just a real lesson in leadership, and just the importance of making sure that you're bringing everybody up with you and around you. And I had such an awesome freshman and sophomore class. These guys were great. They just didn't have the experience that we had as seniors that we've kind of rolled through. And, making sure that we're letting them know how valuable they are and how important they are to our program and how much we need them. And, for me as a senior, if I'm being shut out, like, I need someone else to step up, and making them feel empowered to do so. And, we had that was just a season where there was so much growth on this team. And, that sophomore class was like Kristen Somar and Christy Jenkins were just some names from the past too, that had gone on to play for the U.S. team and win World Cups. But, all of us together just realized that we needed each other. This wasn't going to be done a one person thing. It was going to be, we're going to be the best team we can be when we can empower each other and give each other just the permission to be amazing. Like, Jen Adams, you're a freshman, and I need you to be I need you to be awesome, and you are awesome. So step up and look at what that class did. They did that every single year. But that was probably the thing I learned the most my senior year is how important it was to be a leader that was encouraging and embracing, and one that could help bring people along with you, and not one. And I'm still not that way as a leader. I'm not a person that barks orders and tries to pull rank or do anything like that. This is like, we are in this together, and we're going to go down fighting, or we're going to be successful because we did it together. And that was probably a real big lesson from my 1998 year.
Do you think that style of leadership you learn, and I think leadership's a hard thing for people because they feel like they have to be something that maybe they're not sure they are, like somebody that's not loud or doesn't like to bark orders, feels like that's what leadership is. How do you think you authentically figure that out for yourself? Because I feel like you as a coach, talking to your players, just seeing you out in the field, it's a very authentic, you found your way of being a coach and getting across what's important. How do you think you learned that senior year, which maybe was the first time you had to step up into that leadership role and learn how to do it in an authentic way?
Yeah, well, I think it's just the reminder that all of us are so different. Our personalities are different. What we're comfortable with is different, but yet when we can respect each other's differences and bring out the best in each other, we can form a pretty good group, to work together to achieve greatness. You're right. I've just kind of developed and evolved over the years, and what has I don't even say it's worked for me. I guess it's worked for me. We've done all right. Is is just is being true to who I am, right? And I'm somebody that's not I'm not a yeller. I'm not a, like we say, barking orders. I'm more of an encourager and a hugger, and someone that's just going to kind of push you along the way and try to help you figure out who you are and to be the best that you can be. But I'm just going to be alongside of you, kind of help and support you from behind. But I do think that I played with so many great players. You look back to my time at Maryland when I was younger. My freshman year, Laura Harmon was a senior, and I was terrified of her when we started freshman year because she was the best player ever. She was playing field hockey and lacrosse, and she was awesome. And so coming in, I was like, oh my God, I've got like so much to learn. You know how it was. You start freshman year
Yeah.
and you go one-on-one against somebody, and you're like, oh my God, which was kind of crazy. And then, got to learn from her. And she was one of my favorite people ever, one of my favorite teammates. I mean, what a great leader. She was awesome. In sophomore year, we had Kelly Monte. Well, what a great competitor she was. Just had that will to win and that desire to be the best that she could be. So you learned little bits and pieces from everybody that you had the chance to play with and alongside of, which was really special. And then the year above me, of players like Sarah Forbes, who, just a quick congratulations. Sarah Forbes is going to the Australian Hall of Fame, and Jen Adams. Like, what a cool, honor for both of those. But to be able to have all of them on kind of bookends of my playing career was just really special, because I think they all bring something unique to the game and unique to the team environment, and have different leadership skills that I think we can all learn from and try to piece together who we want to be as we move forward.
Yeah, I think it's a cool segue then now to you kind of talked about your time at Denver, and then 2007, I believe, was your first season when you come back as head coach now at Maryland. What was your vision going into that? What was your vision for like building on the program that had been coming off this amazing streak and legacy that you were a part of, playing for Cindy? And then how did you transition into taking the stuff that you wanted to bring with you and then also putting some of your own mark on, the future of the program?
When the opportunity, it was kind of crazy. So that summer, Cindy took the job at the Naval Academy. And I think in my mind, I've never thought of Maryland without Cindy. Like, it just has never, I didn't think she was ever going to leave. Right. Like, she's been kind of the heart and soul of Maryland lacrosse forever. And I had left being her assistant to go to Denver to get head coaching experience with the hope and dream that one day, because I was loving this, that one day I would have the chance to come back to a big program, but I needed to get that experience and try to find my own identity and what we were doing with that. And I was pregnant with our second child. He was due in September, and the job opened in August. And when Maryland reached out to me, I think I just cried for a couple of days. It's not like I cry all the time in this. I don't really cry all the time, but it was like, I was so emotional because I'm like, I just never thought the opportunity to come back to Maryland was going to happen when I'm 30 years old. Like, this just wasn't how I envisioned things. My husband, Brian, was playing professionally out in Colorado and had just started the Denver Outlaws out there. Like, there's a lot of cool things that were going on in our life, and we really loved that. But the opportunity to come back to a place, raise our kids where our families were, where I played, where we both played lacrosse, was so cool. But yet overwhelming. And since I was really pregnant, I was like, I can't fly back to interview. I don't know what's going to happen. And they're like, all right, we'll fly to you. And I was like, what? So they come out, and, the administrator at the time, and we had a great interview. He was fantastic. Randy Eaton, loved him. And was like, okay, we're going to do this, and took the opportunity. And Jen agreed to come back too, which was awesome to have, you have a great assistant coach lined up when we're coming back to Maryland to start. And, so here we are, and we pop back in. I think one of the first questions I got was, well, what are your plans to bring Maryland back? And I'm like, Maryland never went anywhere. Like, I don't know, because what, they didn't win 9 national championships in a row, or 12 national
Right, set
championships
the
in
bar
a row,
high.
like throwing them under the bus. Like, Cindy has had a phenomenal team, and my job is not to change what she did, put my own spin on it, but just let's keep Maryland fighting. Let's keep striving to be better. Every year that we're out there is a chance to compete and, be the best we can be. And that was kind of what we did. And we came in, my first year back at Maryland, we had a really large roster, and we had to make some hard decisions and to try to skin that down a little bit. And that was one of the toughest months of my life, doing that, moving, having my second kid, just changing of everything. It was a really tough time, but I think it was the start of what's been a great ride for me since having the opportunity to continue what Cindy had done so well.
Yeah, and I'd like to dig in a little more deeply there, and kind of even look at what is you're getting back to Maryland in 2007. Like, what are the things that you're like, maybe stuff that you did at Denver, maybe stuff that Cindy instilled with you, that you're like, this program to be successful has to have these characteristics, whether it's culture, whether it's focus on skill, whether it's type of players. Like, you're getting back and get the chance to coach Maryland, which you were so excited and dreamed about. Like, what is to you was the most important thing off the start that you felt like you wanted to make sure that program?
Culture is the word. I mean, I know that's kind of a key tag word that a lot of people use for things, but things had maybe shifted, and we just wanted to make sure we were bringing back what was important, right? Like, let's get our sights on what our vision is and what we're doing and what it means to play for Maryland. Like, I'm very passionate about that. And I think everybody that comes through our program on both the men's and the women's side is very passionate about what it means to be a Terp, what it means to be a great teammate. And that was a big thing for me too, is let's review that. Let's talk about what it means to be a great teammate. How are we treating each other? How are we supporting each other? How do we have each other's backs? It's not even about catching and throwing and X's and O's. We'll get to that. But let's kind of build the foundation of what our program is going to develop on as we keep going through. And things started to just shift. And it was like, okay, now we can spend our time focusing on stick work, and then we can focus on conditioning and our overall fitness, and just kind of raise the level as we go. And I think our first season was 2007, and then 2000, was it 7? Yeah, 2007. We lost in the quarterfinals both of those years, and then we made the Final Four in 2009 and lost in the semifinals. And that was just kind of the starting point where I think the group that we had knew what it was going to take to win a national championship. And, this was Caitlin McFadden's junior year, right? And so she had lost in that semifinal game. And when 2010 came in, we had laid the foundation, right? Like, it was there. The girls were doing everything they needed to do to be the best teammates they can be, which is really important to me. Very unselfish and very excited and passionate about Maryland and competing. And we went on, and that was kind of the fourth year of that run, because when I started, Caitlin was a freshman. So it was her senior year, her fourth year, we were able to win the national championship. Let me remind you, we went down 6-0 in that game in 2010.
That was going to be my follow-up. Yeah. That, how did you guys dig out of that? And how did you, message to the team, like, we're still in this thing?
Yeah. Well, it was, yeah. So it's Towson, right? And you hear the announcements, everything goes on. And of course, I got tears pouring. Here I am crying again, tears pouring down. It was such an emotional moment. There's so many Maryland fans here. There's so many fans here, period. We've got a sold out crowd. There's over 10,000 fans watching women's lacrosse. This is awesome, especially because, my last national championship, when we're in 2001, I think it was at Hopkins, and I was an assistant there, and it just was, our crowd has grown tremendously. And this is so cool to be a part of. And we went down, 6-0 in 15 minutes, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. There was an indirect call. One of my Australian players, Sarah Mollison, had an indirect call against her because she passed, or she ran in and scored off of a foul. This is back when we had indirect fouls, meaning you have to pass it to somebody else before they can shoot. She runs over. She's like, "What is that rule?" And meanwhile, you're like, just let it go. We got to go. And she's like, my job is to score. So it was a really kind of funny interaction there. And then we had a goal, and it was an accidental whistle that was blown, and we scored. And, the official on the sideline, she looked at me and she goes, just a reminder, you are on television, because I was about to lose my mind, and I'm like, how are we having an inadvertent whistle in a national championship when I'm down by 6, remind you, and we're finally finding ways to score? It was like everything that could go against us went against us. But credit to this team. My God, they're tough. And they came back and fought and fought and fought. We went into the locker room halftime, 8-8. And I walk in the locker room and the whole place is just dead quiet. They're all staring at me. I just start laughing. I'm like, wait, well, hey guys, we just kept 10,000 fans in their seats. Like, no one is leaving this game. We got a battle here, and we're going to go fight it, and we're going to win this thing. So we're going to stick to our game plan, stick to where we are, and need you guys to kind of step up and do your part. And so that was the first championship of kind of my era in that time, but it was a real special one and memorable one for sure.
Wow, yeah, I love hearing those stories, and we've talked about the mindset piece before, and that was something Coach Tillman would always do with us, also like the 0-0 thing, because we're college kids and our heads are all over the place, and you always look to your coach in those moments of like, are we screwed right now? And I just think having that calming demeanor just can ripple through a whole team, and that's some of the notes we got from some of the players that we asked about you was your ability to, hey, when things were bad, like there was no panic. And I think that sense of stillness and trust just bled through the culture of your team.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. And it's something too that I think I've learned over time, because I don't know that I was always, when a game gets heated and you're in overtime and there's like I've learned that they're looking at me to see how I am handling this. And if I am calm and confident, then they are the same way. But if I'm frazzled and frantic, then I can kind of portray that on them, which happens as well too. And I did, have learned that as feedback over games in the past. And so I am try to be aware of that too. But we were at 8-8 in the locker room there. I'm like, well, that was a hell of a half, man. Let's keep rolling. This is fun. And they just kind of can laugh and lighten up. And then, the dancing and the excitement and just having that free spirit to remember we're playing lacrosse. Like, we're playing a sport that we love. This is fun. I know it's challenging and can be stressful or emotional at times, but at the same time, like, there's more to life than lacrosse, but let's enjoy this moment while we're out there and playing and fighting together and see what we can do. And that was a really special championship year.
We're talking about just some of these core values as you're, building the program. Like, you had that, big 4-year run with that team kind of culminating in that 2010 victory. One thing that Taylor Cummings was mentioning was, you really had this ability to hold everyone to the same standard, but at the same time, really figure out what each player needs, connect with them, figure out whether maybe it's how they need to be coached or how to connect with them off the field. How did you, as you started building up the program, how did you work on that accountability? Because I think sometimes that can be hard as a coach, like you're trying to figure out how to keep everyone and raise everyone to the same standard, but also keep that personal touch.
One of the things and ways that we've always operated here is everyone's role matters. And everyone matters to this team. Everyone is important, whether you're on the field for 60 minutes or whether you don't play an entire season. We need each other to be successful. And I think, if we didn't, we would be an individual sport. And so the more that we can embrace this and embrace that connectivity and the support for one another, the better we're going to be. And so, making sure that when we're just out at practice, I think it's important to give positive feedback to as many people as you can. And it's hard. It's hard because I think sometimes people just hear, the negative and stuff like that rather than hearing the good when it comes. But trying to make an effort, not just from our coaches, but from our team. Like, let's make sure our team is building each other up and raising everybody and holding them to a high standard of what's expected. And, when our leaders are in a position that they're setting the tone and setting the example, it's people follow, right? And they want to be a part and a lot, even if they're not. I mean, we have players right now this season that are just, I see them out there doing extra running and stick work and I don't know, they don't know where they're going to fall as far as this season goes, but they see their other peers doing it, their other teammates doing it. It just kind of can raise the level and elevate kind of the skill around the program. And so, as coaches, we try to give feedback to everybody. We try to include everyone in film sessions, especially as we get going, knowing that there's a huge development piece and value for everybody, especially you were talking earlier about our freshmen coming in. You've got 9 freshmen this year, and they've got a lot to learn as you transition to the college game. The speed of the college game is fast and can be overwhelming when you first get started. So there's a lot to learn, and their brains are going 1,000 miles an hour. But the more that we can kind of show them individual love and attention and support, I think the better off we're going to be in the long run, especially if these guys continue through their career.
Yeah, and you mentioned this earlier of you arriving to campus, and then you being a senior, and just the need to connect with the younger players, and how when you got there, you looked at players, you're like, I might never play here. These girls are so great. And I remember that vividly. I tell the story to a lot of the kids I coach that when I got to Maryland, like Jesse Bernhardt was a senior and Michael Earhart was a junior, and they just started in the national championship or All-Americans the year before. And we had a red-white scrimmage like in the fall before we just got equipment. Like my equipment didn't even fit. And I just remember thinking, I will never play at this school. If that's what like the guys that play here look like that is a different level. And eventually you figure it out, but it was really hard because the game is so fast. And I try to tell a lot of the kids, I coach high school now. I try to tell a lot of those kids, like, expect it to be hard. I hope it's not, but expect it to be, because it's just different and the players are good. I'm curious, like, what advice do you have conversations with your freshmen, or what advice would you give a player that's maybe at that freshman point right now on how to manage that process of maybe the first time they really face adversity of like going, maybe in high school, they were always kind of good enough to get on the field, but they're hitting that wall, or how do you help those freshmen through that period?
We broke up our team this fall. So each of the coaches just trying to do check-ins, right? Where we're checking in with each of the athletes weekly, just to make sure, see how everything's going, whether it's off the field stuff, living, adjustment to college. And I had a lot of the freshmen in my in my group. And I think one of the main things we talk about is trust the process. It's a big trust the process, because it's a long one and it's not going to happen overnight. And you're going to have your welcome to college moments, right? Like, we're going to go out and scrimmage and you're going to try to dodge one-on-one, and someone's just going to body you up and you're going to go fly into next week, right? And so you just need to learn how the game goes and trust the process and understand that there's a big learning curve. And we have a lot of work to do before we get to obviously where we need to be. But just here's what we're doing well so far, and try to focus on those things and recognize what we keep needing to do. And a lot of them can see already after 3 weeks of practice where they need to focus on, like what they need to focus on. Whether it be something as simple as stick work, or for a lot of my offensive players, it's what to do when I don't have the ball in my stick, right? Because all these guys are coming in and they've been the best players at their high schools, or the best players in their program. And the best players typically, they have the ball in their stick all the time. So they need to learn how to play off ball. And that's a big adjustment for a lot of people. So they realize it after they start, going through the fall and practices and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, wow, there's more to college offense than just run by everybody and you get a double and you pass it to the person who doubled you. And that's it. It's a goal, which used to work in high school and it just doesn't work at the next level. So it's definitely, it's a long process with an opportunity to grow, and it's an opportunity that's theirs to take advantage of. So just encouraging them too, that, even though they're going to be tough days, keep fighting, keep working, put your head down and go. I say the same thing to my boys all the time playing. I'm like, all right, tough practice. So put your head down and go. You just got to keep working and keep kind of crawling and learning as much as you can, because that's what's going to help you develop and to be a better player. We're actually meeting, today as a team too, to talk about, I just need you to be saying the right things to yourself too. I think that, I know you guys have talked a lot on some of your podcasts with other coaches about, just kind of the mental side of things and how you look at this and what works for you and what doesn't. And I'm really big on how we talk to ourselves. I think you're going to act and react the way that your mind is telling you to. And so focusing a lot in the affirmation part of stuff, where we can, we don't need other people to tell us how we are. We need to be telling ourselves that, and believe in ourselves a little bit more. And confidence seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. So as much as we can kind of help that and find different ways to attack that, I think is something that's kind of crucial for our growth and development too.
Are there 2 or 3 affirmations that you constantly find yourself like sharing with a player that you think, hey, try this out? Like, are there any examples that you can share with us?
Well, we'll sit there today and we'll go through it. I'm going to ask them to come up with their own, because I think every player's is unique and valuable and individual in what they need and what they come up with. And, so, I mean, even something as simple as I score my 8 meters. Like, it's something as simple as you go up to the line, and it's not like the other day we're doing an 8 meter and we had a contest put in, and so we're trying to compete with it. And if you didn't make a certain amount of them, whatever it was, I don't remember, you needed to run something, And so the question that one of them turns and asks me and says, so wait, how much do we have to run? I'm like, that's not your focus. Your focus is I'm going to score every 8 meter. So we just have to shift the way we speak to ourselves. And at that moment, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm like, yeah, so stop worrying about what you're doing if it doesn't work out, and focus on making it work out. And so it's just, again, that was a one example of it. And I think there are things that we need to focus on. And sometimes I catch them and sometimes I don't. Like I'll catch comments like that, or somebody hid in the back because they were 100% in shooting the other day. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, no, we want you to be great. Like, that's it. You should be out here. Like, everyone should be celebrating the fact that you were 100%, not that you were better than, and so it's confidence, it's affirmations, it's talking to yourself, it's talking to your teammates, it's empowering your teammates to be great. Again, that goes back to being a good teammate and realizing that we're all in this together. It's not golf, like we need each other to be successful. And if I've got you, I can't get assists, or we can't score goals if I can't have somebody to pass the ball to, or if my defenders can't get it up the field. Everybody needs each other to kind of to create the ultimate amount of success that we can achieve as a team.
It sounds so obvious when you say it, like the way you talk to yourself. But until you understand that you are talking to yourself and you monitor what actually goes through your head, you're like, wow, I'm pretty mean to myself. Unless I don't think, like, even you might have said something earlier, like, well, did I have success? Like, Cathy, you've had plenty of success, like, in the way, but we all do that, I feel like. And so if you don't catch it, and I just think that teaching players that you can change the way you talk to yourself, and that's part of confidence, certainly, is preparation and making sure you've practiced enough. But there's plenty of players that practice every day and they still don't have the confidence to go make the play because they don't realize the conversation they're having with themselves.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We all struggle with it in whatever area it is. Like, we could be going to speak at some event and I have to sit there before I go. I'm like, I'm going to crush this, like, I got this, like, Cathy, you're, and like, you have this self-talk. And if we can, find the way that what we need to do that, it just takes a little bit of the element of where you're a little unsure out. And I think it's really important.
Question beyond, so I that mental, huge piece, how we talk to ourselves, mental skills, prioritizing that. I'm wondering even if you could go into some of I know you mentioned off ball is a big thing that you see the freshmen need to work on. Are there any other skills that you find are just like the most important things that you absolutely need to make sure that your team is just dialed in on? Like the girls that stay after and work on things, like what are the things that are so very big priority to you?
Yeah, well, I think coming off of last season, we've put a real big push in stick work, and it sounds so obvious, but I just think that when people get to us, they're just playing so many games that there just maybe hasn't been the focus that we didn't have club lacrosse, we didn't have games. All we did was stick work, right? That was like, even when I played at Maryland with Cindy and Gary, we spent 30 minutes a day on stick work. Our stick skills were the best they could be. And I think even now in practice, we kind of go through things pretty quickly, right? Like, we're moving on to stick work into the next year on what we need to do. And so spending extra time on that, because last year, I don't think it was just not at the level it needed to be, right? And so it's an area that we need to focus on and get better. I think, other areas offensively we're talking a lot about are dodging. A lot of our girls are comfortable just running by people, right? Because they're fast and explosive and they can do that. But there's an art to dodging, to getting people, to think you're going one way to go the other, and not just settling for being fast and using your speed. So trying to do kind of both of those things, right? Like, have a quick first step and be explosive, be dynamic, and be difficult for people to defend. So that's a couple of our pieces. As we go through fall, we're always working to build our defense. And within the landscape, we have a lot of new rules that are coming in. And I think one of the things that my defensive coaches have done an awesome job with over the years is we just play a very disciplined team defense. And I know a lot of teams have gone to zones and stuff like that, where we've been focused really on being good one-on-one defenders, sending help when needed, having each other's backs, making sure our slides are where they need to be. And I think my defensive coaches have done an awesome job. And, Kenneth has worked with me must be her 19th year. So she's been just a consistent at Maryland with Maryland Lacrosse as well. And she's done a tremendous job over the year of putting together some of the best defensive teams there we've ever seen in women's lacrosse. And so we just kind of stay true to the fundamentals. I'll try to make things, lacrosse is lacrosse. I don't need to make it crazy or something that it's not. I think we like to stay true to what we need to do, what fundamentals, what's the foundation of this, and then we can build upon it once we can get those skills in place.
Well, it's interesting too, and I think it's probably cool for you as well. Like you're thinking about your freshman this fall, but then your daughter Caden's a senior, and then she's going to be coming into the program next year, so she'll be, going through, a very similar path. But I feel like there's always this balance between, what are the things you can work on your own, but also the speed of the game, the aggressiveness of the defense. Like those are things you can't always simulate. So like some of that you have to just learn that from the trial by fire. And I do feel like it always puts the pressure on coaches to figure out ways of evolving and coming up with new drills to give each group of players what they need to find those development points.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think, the stuff that people can work on off their own are the skills, right? Are the fundamentals, are the stick work, is the fitness, is the dodging, is the shooting, is the feeding, is footwork on defense, that kind of stuff. And then once they get to us, it's the competitiveness of it, right? Putting you in a situation where, okay, like my freshman right now, you're going up one-on-one, and guess who you're against? You're against Corey Edmondson, and so that's where it's a little more eye-opening. And then you're getting that to compete at the highest level, which is kind of a quick welcome to college, right? Like you're learning really, really quickly. And so as coaches, we try to compete as much as possible, make things fun, make them competitive. But that's how you learn, I think, is getting as many reps as possible and the most opportunity to compete against some great players.
Cathy, have you found in maybe the last timeline doesn't matter that much, but I know the game's been evolving with shot clock and things like that. So, and maybe sports science even that's coming out with how people are training, developing skills. Have you found the way that you've tried to, and you and your staff have tried to implement skill and concepts within your team has changed over the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot more, just film available, a lot more film technology available, a lot more breakdowns and opportunities for individual stuff with that. And, we've tried to really, I would say over the past 5 to 10 years, bring it out to practice. So now we're not just cutting film post practice, we're watching it during practice to say, hey, look at this, like even iPad out there and say, hey, we just see this cut or see this feed or see how you opened up too wide on this defensive stance. So I do think that's something that our staff has done, made it, and they're better than me at that. I'm not good with technology, period. So it's nice to have a staff that I trust with that can do a really good job and knows what they're doing to help with that. I think that's probably it. You've said, the GPS things, our strength and conditioning coach can monitor that and talk with me about training. It's funny because I'm old school with that. And I'm like, okay, so I know that I'm playing a game and Corey Edmondson ran more than everybody. Yeah, because she's a midi. She's on both ends of the field. And I kept her in for 60 minutes because she's a two-way midi. So mine was more like, okay, they're like, okay, Kath, we have more that we can look at than this. And so there's still a lot of room for me to grow and learn in those areas. But there's just a lot of technology available for everybody today with this kind of stuff too, which is, I don't know, pretty cool. But at the end of the day, it's still lacrosse. You're trying to put the ball in the back of the net more than the other team and figure out how to do that more than let it the ball in, and so trying to keep it as simple as possible too and not overthink it. One of Cindy's favorite quotes from when I was a player and coach is overanalysis is paralysis. And so remind ourselves of that too, because boy, you can go down rabbit holes when you're watching film and scouting opponents and analyzing your own team. And at the end of the day, it's still lacrosse. Right. And so making sure that we're, again, just kind of respecting all of it and making the most out of the knowledge that we have and using it to help us become, the best version of us that year.
The interesting thing too, and I really appreciate the simplicity of that because I feel like things are also going in a way where, hey, you talked about more club games, there's more training, there's all these more things that you can do, like more, and you can look at things even more. But also just the art of learning how to compete, learning how to be really consistent in your preparation, but also how you show up. Some of these things that, it's not rocket science, but it might be harder some days, for some of these kids to learn some of these in today's environment where you could just always go to another training, or you could always go to another tournament, as opposed to really having to sit with some of the I don't know if it's the pressure or, just the challenges, and learn how to do those things that maybe rise above what the skill is at times.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because a lot of tournaments are showcases, right? And so at the end of the day, the wins and losses don't matter. And so how are you, going to compete at the end of the game when the game's on the line and you're only advancing if you win? And I think they're two different things, right? Like there's a different way that even watching for my daughter going through the whole club process, that certain people are stepping up when the game's on the line and it's like, okay, give me the ball, we're going to make something happen, or they're locking it down defensively or whatever it may be. um but that's going to be different for everybody everywhere because it depends, how your team approaches it, how they're competing, and where they are. So it's interesting. I do know there's so much, and having gone through it with my daughter last year, there's so much available. There's so much. You could play lacrosse every day of the summer if you wanted. There's a different event or something all the time. And she loves basketball too, and loves to play that. And I felt like, she was feeling like she needed to do everything too, because you're in it, right? All your friends are doing this and you feel like you're pulled different ways. And so it's a lot to balance, but I do think there's, a lot to learn from those competitive environments and from other sports. And again, it's you play sports. Why do you play sports? Because it's fun, and that's why all these kids start playing in high school. And we got to remember that too. I think with, at the baseline of all of it is that these kids are making friendships and they're having some life lessons and learning from great coaches, and having a great experience all the way. And hopefully if they get the opportunity to play at the next level, they're ready to compete, they're ready to fight, and ready to do what they need to do to help the team be successful.
You have a unique perspective, being, obviously a long-standing Division I head coach, but also a parent of two boys that are now playing at Maryland and a daughter that is going to play, as Deemer mentioned, at the University of Maryland. Um, what advice do you have from your perspective to families going through this recruiting process, and maybe their son or daughter wants to play Division I lacrosse and they're a freshman or a sophomore, and they start to feel pulled like, oh, well, do I have to do all this stuff? Should I not play basketball? How do I navigate? Who do I trust? Because there's a lot of information coming in. I wonder maybe if you have any like advice that some of those families, players, parents could hear from your experience.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? Like this is where you want the crystal ball and see what's the right answer for all of this, because you're right. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of kids are playing different sports, and all these sports want you more than just their spring season. A lot of soccer players, they want you full, they want you all around the, year round. Basketball as well. So it is fine. It's hard to find that balance. One time I did a recruiting talk with someone and I kind of took this line from them because I loved it. And at the end of the day, follow the trail of interest. When you get going in, you're able to communicate with coaches. And for us, it's September 1st of junior year. Follow the trail of interest. You may have had your heart set on school A, B, or C, but guess what? School D, E, and F are the three that reached out to you. Like, check them out, because obviously these schools see some value in you, and think that you could be a special player for them and be a contributing person on their roster. And I think sometimes we are a little too narrow-minded, that we can just kind of try to keep it as open-minded as we can, and follow the trail of interest. If schools do reach out, it's an honor, and an opportunity to learn and to go visit, maybe check someplace out that sees a lot of value in you. But finding that balance as a parent is hard. I don't have the perfect answer for it, because um, I struggled with it too, and obviously was hopeful that my daughter was going to want to come here. I tried to let her kind of go through it too, but at the same time, she wants to, you want to do everything. And as a parent, it's hard to say no when there are all these great events that are out there and opportunities to compete against really good players and learn. I also think never take away the option to learn, because I think a lot of times kids can get caught up in just going to these events that are playing, but learning is where the growth happens. And so I love being coached by other people and learning from other people. And yeah, what they're teaching you may not work for you, and it may be something, but you're learning a different way of doing things. And I think that's important to help you grow and figure out who you are as a player and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and maybe ways that you can improve them too.
Yeah, it's cool to hear. And I think that last piece kind of reminds me of just the idea of curiosity. like if we can find ways to inspire that or like give space for that to happen, then it's cool to see. Like I just remember in my own journey when I started really getting more curious about offense and like working on that skill more. I think it definitely led me to get into coaching more because I just loved and enjoyed that process. But it's not the same for everyone. And, whenever a kid can find that for themselves, I feel like that's where they can really, figure out their ceiling and whatever they're trying to do.
No, for sure. And again, I wish there was an easy answer. And as we keep going, more and more things are added. There's more opportunity for one-on-one instruction and individual and small group stuff for kids to take advantage of. But they're learning, right? They're learning, they're growing, and finding out more about themselves as a player for sure.
I love follow the trail of interest because it gives you permission to change your mind, which I think there's this huge sunk cost fallacy. A lot of people like, well, I've done all this stuff already and I always wanted to do this. So now I need to keep doing this because as a freshman, I thought I wanted to play college lacrosse or at this school, and I'm a junior and I don't know that I do, but my parents, we went to all these tournaments. So, and my friends are all doing it. And I do think I can sense as a high school coach, there's tension between what players tell me they want and what I think they actually love to do. Because I've coached the kids that love it, and I know because it's hard, right? Freshman year is hard. If you don't love it and you're not like excited about it and you're not willing to deal with kind of some adversity and putting in the work, like it's a challenge. And I think that follow the trail of interest, it's like permission, like, hey, if that's not where your heart is anymore, just because you thought that was what you had to do, it's okay. Go lean into what you love and excites you.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of times, you kids get set on, I only want to go to, these three schools and that's it. And that's my dream. Yes. And it's great to dream. It's great to have these, high goals. But at the end of the day, each school may be taking a max of 6 players. So that's 18 players that are going to these 3 schools. But then you have another school that reaches out to you that sees value in you and you just have never considered before. I just think it's important to keep an open mind. And it's hard and sometimes it hurts, but at the same time, that's where opportunities are created, right? And that's where kind of great moments and great opportunities are made. And I don't know, it was just a line I heard in a recruiting thing and I love it and I use it all the time because I think it's really valuable.
How have you, as a coach and a parent, I'm sure it's hard sometimes to take the back seat of your own kid's development. Like everybody wants to encourage, help their kid to be to reach their goals. And you as a coach, you probably have more insight than most into how they might be able to do that. But there's probably tension in being all over them to do certain things and letting them figure it out themselves. How have you kind of managed that tension with your kids going through some of these processes?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know. I think I've been really fortunate that my husband's coached a lot of them throughout the ways, through the years, whether it was on club lacrosse or whether it's high school lacrosse. He's done the boys' side and done in high school has had great success on the girls' side too. And so, they're learning from someone that has a great lacrosse mind and has just had a tremendous lacrosse career and is a great teacher of the game. They also have had other coaches in sports in different places that they played on club teams that have gone through that just maybe teach in a different way. And I think that's important to learn and important to hear from. And so I'm just not in a position. I don't know everything. I don't know everything either, so it's like, okay, maybe this is interesting. We can take the drill from this high school club team, that's coming through and playing and kind of pick up some things that other people are doing too. And that probably goes back to Deemer, what you said about curiosity, right? Like just always being interested and having your eyes open and seeing what's out there. But, every kid's going to go on their own path. And that was important for us to, let them develop and grow and pursue their passions and what they love. And here's where we are right now, and I'm thankful that 3 are at Maryland, so we'll be they get to see me a lot more than they probably would like to.
We had Coach Alberici, on a podcast, and I think that'll come out at some point. But he was just mentioning his daughter Bella's at Army, and she like swung by the office, and they got to have a catch, and like just like so I'm sure that's really special for you to now, next year have 3 on campus and just get to see them and get those small moments together.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, even now it's like we'll be touring people through campus and we bomb through, our academic support facility or where men's lacrosse is. And obviously I know all the boys on the team and I just think a lot of them are just so wonderful. So it's so nice to just even be able to, I'm like giving hugs to everyone, like all in the weight room. I probably look pretty cool for, these girls and families coming through there, but they're just a special group of boys. And it's nice to kind of see my own when I get to bomb through that facility too.
That's awesome. And you mentioned it earlier, and it just kind of resonated with me of that, just the College Park experience of what it means to play at Maryland. And some of the girls we spoke to about you, and even in my experience, like we're connected with players we've never played with. Like we all are still so connected with Coach Tillman. And I know the kids, I coach some of the kids in high school that are on the team now, and I've met some of the guys in between that I never played with just because we played Maryland lacrosse. And I actually think that bleeds over between the men's and women's side too a bit, which is cool and unique. So it's such a special thing. And I think it's awesome that, to have you there for so long, Coach Tillman there for so long, it creates such continuity with the alumni and from players that are, 18-year-olds now to 30-something-year-olds now that all have that same connection through people like yourself and Coach Tillman and the staff and the players that have gone through.
Yeah, it is really, really special and cool. And I even see it with my own staff, right? I've got Alex Ostholman on staff who graduated in 2013. And then I have Nadine Hagnaghi, who was 2017. And then Caroline Steele's our director of ops of 2019. So even all of these, we cross so many just different eras, but we had, an alumni game the other day that came back, and we were, had such a great group of players and awesome people. And it's so cool to see like players like Jen Adams, who's, obviously an outstanding coach, one of, the best out there, but class of 2001. And she's just hugging and, loving on whoever, Abby Bosco, who just graduated a couple years ago, just those relationships I think are connected, and you're part of a family forever. And that's important to me, and something that, I don't know, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think starting to wrap up here, I think finishing off of that, you're obviously part of a great coaching tree, playing for Cindy and for Gary, but also with the time that you've been at Maryland now, you've really built a special one of your own, and you have more players that are coming out that you're inspiring. Can you just talk a little bit about that mentorship? Like how do you try to mentor your assistants and players, and maybe a little more about like what that means to you?
Yeah, I'm really proud of, I'm proud of everybody. I want everyone to follow their passions and their dreams and get to achieve whatever goal it is that they set out for themselves, whatever that may be. When players choose to get into coaching, a part of it just makes you smile because it just reinforces that they love their college career. They love the sport. They love the game. And, we've had players that have coached that didn't play very much at all at Maryland. And that goes to show that even the ones that were all Americans at Maryland and keep going on to coach, it doesn't, that we're doing something right? Like that these guys can still love being a part of a team, and know that their role was important and that they were valued, and that they're going to go on and make a difference in someone else's life. For all of us that are coaches, we impact people on a daily basis. A lot of times we don't even realize it, whether we realize it or not. Things that we're saying, there's some of these kids hang on to every word that you say, every facial expression. I'm not good at. Sometimes I wear my facial expressions, I'm not good at hiding that. I got to work on that. But they kind of can hold on to those things. And so, knowing that everything we do, we're making a difference out there. And I think that's special. So no matter what level it is, whether it's club, whether it's high school, whether it's college, these people that are still competing in the pros, they just love the sport. They love the game. And they're willing to kind of spread that and share with other people is really cool.
Well, I'm smiling because I'm just thinking about, all the stuff you're talking about and how great. And Deemer and I have talked about it. Like, I think the reason we do what we do is because we've had such great college experiences. And Deemer went and worked at Barclays for a year on Wall Street and missed the lacrosse side. I did 3 years in consulting in Annapolis, and same deal. I coached high school for a little, and I still do in Dallas. And Deemer started first class lacrosse. We've reached this intersection where it's like the reason we do it is we had such great coaches, and we loved getting coached, and we just couldn't imagine a life where we didn't have the chance to do that. And so hearing you say that, I think it resonates with both of us deeply. It's why we're even here today. And I think enjoying this conversation with you so much.
Yeah. And you love the sport, right? Like the game is so cool, and watching how much it's evolved over the years, both like men's and women's, and just watching the level of athletes that are coming through and graduating, and the level of play is I mean, the girls always say to me, like, are you going to play in our alumni game? And I'm like, hell no, I'm not doing anything against you guys. You're too good. If I could still beat you, maybe, but that's not where it is. But like watching how much these guys have grown athletically and the talent and the pace and the skill and how it sounds cheesy, but like just awesome the game is to watch as a fan of the sport. And we're just going to continue to grow. And hopefully, we get more colleges that are going to add. And our tournament bracket we'll see go from 29 to 32 at one point, and hopefully the men's bracket will expand as well. And that happens because of people like you guys and all of everybody that's kind of stepped up and taken on coaching opportunities. No matter what level it is, it's keeping people engaged in the game with eyes on the game and kind of doing their part to just kind of spread the love of the sport.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we're super grateful for your time. We're honored to have had you on, and we're wishing you the best of luck the rest of fall and this spring. And it was awesome chatting with you today.
You guys too. Thank you. It was great to see you.
Good luck in pickleball this week.
That's right. Not playing. I just do the team.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck. See you, Cathy.